Guys, I think we've all seen the Delta CRJ 900 airline flight 4819 from Minneapolis that crashed on the Toronto, I don't know, what would you call it, frozen tundra? Oh my God, I saw a video where it looked like the tires and the landing gear came down properly, but for whatever reason, when it landed, just straight up fire. Some way, somehow, this airplane flips over upside down. There's 80 people on board, 76 passengers and 4 crew members. Miraculously, all 80 people escape with their lives. What made it really, really crazy was that nobody perished. What a great story that is. Still, you don't really see too many situations where there's a flight, or a plane, I should say, upside down like that. It did kind of look like it was straight out of a movie flick, didn't it? That was something else. Now, apparently, when this originally happened, apparently 3 of them had serious life-threatening injuries, along with a 4th person, which was an infant. From what I understand, those 3 people have been downgraded to stable, so they should be okay. But the last I heard, the little infant is still in serious condition. So our prayers and well wishes go obviously to the family and to that little baby. I think that's what's so scary about what happened. I don't know how there's not a bunch of people that were paralyzed or something. There is a little craziness associated with what happened after the flight. Apparently, a lot of people were trying to grab their luggage and trying to grab their backpacks. Some of them were busting out their phones to take video footage and pictures. But the staff and the crew of the flight, I should say, were telling people, drop it, go, go. And apparently, whenever you're in a situation where a plane is upside down and you don't know where fuel is, you don't know if there's some hot parts of the metal that can spark up and ignite the jet fuel. And so what happens is you think you're safe, and then all of a sudden the plane explodes into a ball of fire when you should have been running to safety and getting the heck out of there. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you ever think that you've escaped a plane crash, get the heck away from the plane before you start celebrating. Could you imagine? That would be a good scene of a movie. You show 2 kids that have been escaping death throughout the whole movie, and then at the end they celebrate because they got out of the plane, and then the plane explodes and takes them out. That would be nuts, wouldn't it? A couple years back, I was on a flight. I believe it was from Las Vegas to Phoenix. It was either from LA to Phoenix or Las Vegas to Phoenix, but we had some wicked turbulence where all of a sudden I felt like we dropped 4 or 5 stories instantly. And all of a sudden I started having a panic attack while I was in the air. And that was just from some bad turbulence. Could you imagine a crash like this? Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Life is so precious. Sometimes when I'm on my walk, I think to myself, gosh, why can't people avoid trouble and stay alive? It seems easy on a day-to-day basis just to stay alive, doesn't it? No one's messing with you. You try not to drive too crazy. You wear your seatbelt. You try to eat properly so you don't have to worry about croaking in other ways like a heart attack or stroke, right? You do what you can do, and every day seems like an easy challenge. Hey, I'm going to make it through this day without losing my life, without unaliving myself, right? And then all of a sudden your plane lands, and in the blink of an eye, you're fighting for your life. I don't know how something flops upside down without people having some serious back and neck injuries. I'm surprised nobody got paralyzed or something. Do you guys ever wonder that though? Every day there's so many people that perish because they're at the wrong place at the wrong time. Well, when it comes to being at the wrong place at the wrong time, no one can really predict that. Are you going to be at the gas station when somebody shoots a stray bullet into the gas pump, creating a fireball? Is that something that even if you saw somebody in advance starting to shoot, could you get out of there before the explosion got you? You know, can you do anything about it when you're in rush hour and then all of a sudden there's a giant car crash with a bunch of vehicles involved? Sometimes you're just a victim of circumstance. I think that's why people worry so much. It's like, honey, please wear your seatbelt. Please make sure you brush your teeth. Please make sure you do this. Please make sure you do that. You want your kids and your family members to always be safe. But again, there's certain situations where it's almost like that movie Final Destination, where no matter what you do, when it's your time to go, guess what? You're going. This was one of those few times where the Grim Reaper probably should have been there to take a couple souls with him, but for whatever reason, did not happen. Alloy Man 6419 says it is a true miracle that everyone survived. Prayers and thoughts go out to those injured for a speedy recovery. You know, that's one of those things where if you were injured, I mean, unless you're paralyzed and, you know, in a horrible spot for the rest of your life, that's one of those moments where you have to really count your blessings. If you could get out of a crash like that with only a broken arm or a broken leg, I would consider you extremely lucky. I guess my biggest goal or biggest hope now would be that the little one can grow up strong and able-bodied, just like most of us, because there probably aren't going to be any memories of that, right? If you have a little toddler that's only 1 or 2, I seriously doubt they're going to remember that horrible day that happened to them when they were little. My first memories that I can remember were like preschool memories, you know, right before your first day at kindergarten. I can remember those days. I imagine I was about 3 or 4. Do I remember when I was 1 or 2? No, I really don't. If some of you can remember that, let me know. But I have a feeling your memories are probably like mine, where most of them are right there around your first day of kindergarten or your first day of preschool. So let's actually hope that the baby doesn't even remember any of this. Hey, Ma, why do I walk with a limp? Is it because one ball's bigger than the other? No, Joey. No, Joey, there's no reason at all. Go back to bed. There's some guy named Joey watching this saying, I have one ball bigger than the other. Joey, go have the doctor take a look at that. Sometimes we are built lopsided though, right? You'll get a guy and he's got 3 testicles or 1 giant testicle and a small one. You get a woman, she's got a double D boob on the left and a C cup on the right. It happens. It happens. Let's go through the park today. Let's do it. Let's go through the park. So you know how most people aren't afraid of flying? They should be. You know, if you really think about it, this heavy ass piece of metal with all these people somehow flying through the air at hundreds upon hundreds of miles per hour, right? Kind of like a shooting bullet through the air. We should be more afraid of it, but we're not. But I would imagine when you have a crash landing like this, do you guys think out of these 80 people, there's probably going to be at least a handful of them that end up being afraid to fly for the rest of their lives, right? I mean, it would make me think twice. I would be like, I don't know, is there a train or a bus that can get us to Hawaii? Let's take the train to Hawaii. And you want to know what's crazy? There might be a day in the future where you can take a train to Hawaii. And what if they can make it where it was an underwater train where you look out the windows and you can literally see the ocean? Gosh, I don't care if that cost twice what a flight would. I would go for it. I would love to take that trip. Unless you see a crack in the window. Could you imagine how scary that would be? You're on an underwater plane or underwater train ride to Hawaii and all of a sudden a crack starts forming in your window. Oh my God, that would be the scariest. I think these bullet trains in China and Europe and stuff, I think they're scary. Any train that you're in that's going 100 or 200 or 300 miles per hour, oh my God, if that thing hits one little bump on the way, it's curtains for everybody. That takes a lot of bravery to want to be the first guinea pig in those things, you know? But I'd imagine once you've been on it for a couple of times, you start to realize, hey, this is where it's at.
Are we on YouTube?
On YouTube. Say hi. Everybody wants to be on Walk Talk Vent until they watch it, and then they're like, I don't want to be on that show. Get me off the camera, mister. Marjorie Wright, 7606, says, I think the Toronto Airport fire crew deserves a lot of credit in preventing this from being a much worse event. I think we can all agree to that. Toronto, good job with your fire crew. Give those men a raise. I watched I think it was from like the late 70s or early 80s. It was, I believe, the Daytona 500. It was a short on YouTube, and it was showing invisible methanol fire or methane fire. I forget if it was methanol or methane, one of the two, I think. And it was invisible, and they show all these people, and they're trying to, you know, splash water over everything, and they're all running, and you're like, what the heck is wrong? It literally looked like they were just going crazy and slapping the top of each other's heads, but in reality, they were on fire. It was just one of these flames that was completely invisible. You guys can probably, in this YouTube search window, you can probably type in race car, invisible fire, Daytona 500, and it'll probably show it. It looked bizarre. It looked like a bunch of people going crazy for absolutely no reason. Here's the thing I didn't understand. Okay, the flames are invisible. Sure, gotcha. But either way, they should still be igniting an actual traditional fire on people's hairs or something. I didn't see smoke or anything from the fire. It was really creepy. Now, do I believe they were fibbing and there is no such thing? No. I'm pretty sure you can have an invisible fire, but again, even if somebody was invisible in real life right next to you, you would like to think that if you threw a bucket of powder or colored liquid on them, you would think that you would be able to see where they are. But when it came to this fire, there was literally no evidence that people were on fire other than the fact that you could tell they were on fire. I had a couple of people I was trying to get jobs for this past week or two, and they didn't show up at the job interview. They were supposed to show up virtually via Zoom, and for whatever reason they chose not to, and it's really embarrassing when you have to apologize to the client, which in this case is a school, and say, I'm sorry that our candidate didn't show up. We'll try to do better next time. See you later, right? Very embarrassing. But what I try to tell myself is there's going to come a time in the future where that's going to probably stop. Now, I know other recruiters are probably thinking that's never going to stop. You're always going to have to deal with people ditching out on interviews, which is true. But right now we have this weird world where people don't really see how important their jobs are. In the future, and I mean near future, like probably the rest of this year, I think people are going to start finding jobs and sticking to them. Because if there's one thing that's uncertain in this world, it's your job. I don't think people should mess with it. If you have a school that wants to interview you, I think you should go to the interview, even if you decide not to take the job. Because let me tell you what could happen. If somebody was going to interview with me and then they didn't show up, there's a chance I could remember that person's name. You know, could you imagine if you wanted a job from an employer years later and they said, what was your name again? Oh, Jesse? Yeah, listen, I have you right here. We tried interviewing you 3 years ago. You didn't bother showing up. I think we're going to go with another candidate that we know will show up. So again, whenever you do anything, there's always a chance, if it's not on the up and up, there's always a chance it could come back to bite you. So I'm going to forgive those candidates for not showing up for me. And I'm even going to say a hope and a prayer that maybe they had a better opportunity that popped up. But I'm telling you, if you make a habit out of burning bridges with people, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's a job, whether it's a family member or friend, you're eventually going to run out of bridges to burn. I'm one of these guys, my thinking is don't burn any bridges, because you never ever know when you might need somebody. And the best people you can trust are people that have a track record with you of trust. It's hard to trust brand new people, and I'm telling you, I look at resumes all day long of people that work 3 months here and 2 months there, and it's like, hey, were you a contract worker? Is there a reason you job hop? No, I just got bored of the job. Well, guess what you're telling me? You're telling me that when you're in front of our children here in America, in front of students, if you get bored, you're just going to up and quit one day. Who the heck would want to give you the job? They're going to want to give somebody that has a better track record. So I'm just not a big fan of constantly quitting your job and looking for another one that pays more, because there's going to come a point where you max that out. There's not always going to be somebody that wants to pay you more. Also, you got a rope-a-dope situation that happens, right? Where they kind of lead you to believe you're going to have this great job with all this money, and then you end up going there and finding out, hey, the grass looked greener, but it's not greener. I'm not making any money. Those things happen all the time. Former flight attendant here, if you evacuate an aircraft, run. Leave everything and run. There could be fuel and other hazards lingering. The potential of fire is huge, even if very little fuel is left around. I think she said even if very little fuel is left around, because isn't it kind of a policy that if an airline flight has a little too much fuel on board, I think they'll actually circle around the airport for a while to get rid of some of that excess fuel just to be safe. So I agree. Now that I saw these videos, if you would have seen the videos, what you see is a lot of young men with their cell phones out taking video footage. Knowing what we all know now, that even when you think, hey, we've landed, there's no fire, we're safe, that is when you're potentially at the most danger. That's where you need to get the heck away. Could you imagine if all of a sudden you and your family decided to sprint out of there, and you turn around and you're 300 or 400 yards away, so you feel genuinely safe, right? And you probably are if you're that distance. But then imagine seeing a bunch of people jumping out of the airplane, but they're kind of lingering and taking their dear sweet time. And then imagine a giant fireball just takes everybody. That's one of those where it's like being informed and having that knowledge, that could potentially save your life. Could you imagine Bob? He's like, hey, help me, Jesse. My leg, I can barely move. And you're like, Bob, run. And all of a sudden the fireball catches Bob and he's like, Jesse, no. And that's the end of the movie. It's like Bob didn't make it. Jesse, how come you didn't go help Bob? Because I watched videos on YouTube that told me to get the heck out of there. And then for the rest of my life, I'm talking to this imaginary character named Bob who had a broken leg and couldn't get out of there. Sad. This guy's name is No Subscribers Wanted. I'm an old guy and I've never seen a commercial airliner upside down and everyone survive it. It's a miracle. They really pissed off the Grim Reaper. He almost got them. I wrote down that comment right before I left the house, and I just thought that's true. If there's a Grim Reaper out there looking to collect souls, send them on their way to the next world, he got nothing that time. That is amazing. I'm surprised that like 30 people didn't pass away in some way, shape, or form. I mean, you look at the plane and it's intact. But again, I'm surprised that there weren't more people that were injured. I think they said out of the 80 people, let me see, I got the thing here. Said out of the 80 people, 18 were injured, including an infant. Chris Hessing says, man, I'm glad these people were filming so we could watch this video. Now, the reason he's saying that is because the guy whose YouTube channel it was, he was a former pilot. And he was basically saying that is not the right protocol. If you ever survive a plane crash, don't grab your bag. Don't even grab your phone if it's even 3 or 4 feet away from you. Just get the heck out of there and run. And, you know, it's interesting. If my phone was 3 or 4 feet away from me, especially if we were like on some weird area out in the country or whatever, I think it would be smarter to grab that phone, even though that's risky. What if you're in a spot where somebody has to have a phone to communicate and you all let your phone blow up with the airplane? You know, somebody has got to have the wherewithal to grab their phone. Now, in this case, they were at an airport, so I guess you don't absolutely need it. But at the same time, it'd be kind of a travesty not to grab your phone if it's only a couple feet away, wouldn't it? Have any of you guys been doing double walks? This is really the best time of the year to get some double walks in, because you guys know as well as I do, in the next 5-6 months, it's going to get excessively hot. And once it gets excessively hot, the summer has a way of staying hot for quite a while. And the last thing you want to do is to gain a whole bunch of momentum right now and then lose it all during the summer. So I'm going to tell you the same thing now that I did this time last year. It might not be a horrible idea to pick yourself up a little $10 or $15 a month gym membership. Last year it was $10 a month for a Planet Fitness membership, but I've noticed their commercials lately have been saying 15 bucks. My thinking is, get a membership. Even though you might not think you like it, if you're already walking every day, we don't want to lose that. Get a membership. When it gets super hot, go into the gym. You can listen to really good rock and roll music or hip hop music, right? Or country, whatever is your jam, and go in there and walk on the treadmill. On top of walking on the treadmill, they have a lot of universal machines where you can work out your arms and your legs and all the muscles in between. Go in there, take that next step. If you've been walking with me for the past year, you're obviously really good at developing a routine. Why not take that extra Kaizen step, that baby step upward, and start going to the gym? It's so weird how things change as you get older. I remember when I was younger, I could like hawk a loogie and spit it across the street, right? As you get older, it's like, God, I even have a hard time clearing my throat. And I remember when I would talk to elderly people when I was younger, I'd be like, holy crap, why does it sound like, you know, Mr. Jenkins, why does it sound like he's got a permanent booger in his throat? It's because poor Mr. Jenkins did have a permanent booger in his throat. The poor bastard couldn't clear his throat to talk. And you would think, oh my God, why doesn't he take a minute and clear his throat? For some reason, you get to a certain age and it just becomes challenging as hell. I do 20 to 25 push-ups a day. No matter what, sometimes it's challenging as hell. I wake up, sometimes my feet hurt. Sometimes I feel a little sore in my shoulder and stuff, old football injury that I feel now. It's like, oh my God, is this what baby arthritis feels like? You know, where you're starting to get these ailments. I think it's just something that happens as we age. So here's my question for you. If aging is gonna generally suck, then don't you and I deserve to try to slow that down by walking? See where I'm getting at there? The walk has a way of slowing down that aging progression. Let's slow it down together. If you didn't have the courage and strength to walk with me today, let's make plans for tomorrow. I walk every single day, and I'd love you to walk with us. And I hope you do. I'll see you then. Have a good night.